Hello everyone. Today, we'll be seeing how fast Dragalge can beat Pokemon X in a solo run challenge. Let's get straight into the run. This week, we will be doing Pokemon X with Dragalge and then Clawitzer later in the week. Dragalge is sort of an interesting species. I would like to go over it right now. We start off with 4 moves: Feint Attack, Water Gun, Smokescreen, and Tackle. You also see Twister and Dragon Tail up top. Those are going to only be accessible through the move relearner. And then afterwards we can get Tail Whip at level 9, then Bubble, Acid, Camouflage, Poison Tail, Water Pulse, Double Team, which we are allowed to use, Toxic, Aqua Tail, Sludge Bomb, Hydro Pump, Dragon Pulse, Dragon Tail, and Twister. So a lot of Dragon, Poison, and Water moves, as you may notice. And our stats are sort of interesting. We have 65 HP, 75 attack, 90 defense, 97 special attack, 123 special defense, and 44 speed. We are also in the medium fast level up group, so in the early game we're not going to level up too quickly, but it'll balance out by the end of the game, which is good because these runs always end up at super high levels by the end of the game anyway. And as I go through the early sections of this game, I also want to go over the moveset via TM. Via TM, we get Hidden Power, which according to my overlay is Hidden Power Fire. Our nature's Modest, and we have Adaptability as our ability. Which is a very interesting ability because Adaptability turns all of our same type attack bonus moves, which in this case is Poison and Dragon, from a 1.5 multiplier to a 2 times multiplier. So instead of like Acid having an effective power of 40, it'll have an effective power of 80 compared to the regular 60 with regular stab. So we're definitely going to want to prioritize Poison and Dragon moves if we can. But they're not the best offensively. At least Dragon is neutral to most targets. And if we look at the other TMs, we actually get Thunderbolt, Thunder, Shadow Ball, Sludge Wave, Sludge Bomb, Focus Blast, Scald, Dragon Tail, and Surf and Waterfall. So a decent selection of water and poison moves, and Thunderbolt for some reason. I don't get why this thing should learn Thunderbolt, but hey, I'm not complaining. I'll definitely use that once I get it from the 5th gym. On Route 2, I catch myself a Pidgey and a Bunnelby for Fly, Cut, and Surf later. Although Bunnelby isn't really good for Surf, it's mainly for Cut. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. I need a full team of 6 in order to make sure the Xerneas does not get into my party when I have to catch it later, because otherwise that would kind of break the rules of the run. But they're still helpful for HMs. And then I can go through the Santaloon Forest and make my way to Santaloon City. I fight some of the local trainers to the east on Route 22, because in this game, you gain less experience the higher level you are, so if I want to do some training, I'd have to do it now, and honestly, it's not really that bad. Most of these trainers only have 1 Pokemon, 2 max anyway. So with these trainers defeated, I'm going to go ahead and take on the first gym leader, Viola. She leads off with her Surskit. I go ahead and use a Smokescreen to lower its accuracy, and then I go ahead and stack up some Tail Whips so that way I can start spamming Tackle. Man, this is looking like an average starter run. Use some Tail Whips and spam Tackle. Also during this fight, I have the chance to learn Bubble even though I start with Water Gun, and I easily say no to that. And then I go ahead and just spam Tackle on the Vivillon, and then Infestation is doing consistent chip damage, and after a little bit, I end up fainting, getting my very first reset in the run. I think this is the first time Viola's ever given me a reset. Maybe I should have done some more training. Fortunately, on the next attempt, I decide to actually use some smoke screens on the Vivillon. It still ends up hitting me with Infestation, but I still end up winning, despite being at very low health. Yeah, I did not expect it to be that bad. Doesn't help that my first stab move isn't until level 15. Maybe I should have grinded to level 15 to make that fight a lot easier, but I fought most of the trainers. That would involve me grinding in the wild, and I really wasn't willing to do that. Now this is the part of X and Y playthroughs where there is a massive gap between the first gym and the second gym. I'm not really going to go into detail about most of the story because otherwise this video would just take too long, but I'll go over the important things, such as the fact that I defeat Sycamore in his lab and I can choose one of the 3 Kanto starters. It actually does not matter which one I get because They can learn Cut, Surf, Strength, all that stuff, but other Pokemon I get later to fill my party will learn those anyway, so I can basically just pick whatever I want. Although there can be a theoretical strategic reason to choose a specific starter, because there's this one guy in Camphreer Town, I hope I'm saying that correctly. This guy will give you any berry you want, like Cherry, Chesto, Pecha, stuff like that, if you show him a Pokemon of a random type. Theoretically, he could ask for a water type, and it'd be a good idea you picked Squirtle, but there's no way to check the guy first, so it's kind of a blank guess at this point. But I don't end up getting a berry from that guy anyway. In this run, I decided to just get Charmander, just because it was the fastest option. Also, inside this building just across the street from the Scutterbug Cafe, I can talk to this rising star on the couch and get myself a Quick Claw. This is going to be my main held item for a decent chunk of the run because of how bad my speed is. Although I will hold the Amulet Coin once I eventually get access to that in the Parfum Palace. And the Amulet Coin is inside this room right here, right in front of the fireplace. The reason I want to hold on to this Amulet Coin is because the trainers in X and Y give a lot of money, especially the Team Flare Grunts, because, as they say, it costs $1 million to join. So if I can get enough money, then I can buy a buttload of vitamins, repels, all sorts of stuff with barely any effort, but I'll need to balance between wanting more money and needing the speed guarantees from Quick Claw. So I have to choose wisely which one to equip, and I do end up switching back and forth between them throughout the run. The Snorlax gets awoken, and I completely destroy Tierno and Trevor's whole teams, and then I can go through the connecting cave and get to Route 8. I'm going to fight a lot of the trainers here because this is usually the point where the trainers start to become a higher level than you if you skip too much training. So I'd like to fight some of the trainers here while I can, and then I can enter Ambria Town and do the whole entire thing with the Glittering Cave and Team Flare. Nothing really eventful happens here. Then with all of that stuff done, down here on Route 8 on the lower section, I can go along this coast right here and get myself a rare candy, and then I can fight a bunch of the local fishermen here. There's one fisherman with 3 Tentacool, and even though they've got decent special defense making them sorta hard for me to knock out, at least they actually give very good XP yields. Also, the next gym coming up is going to be the rock type gym, and I sort of do have a type advantage. Even though I'm not a water type, I may as well be a water type with my moveset. And then inside the Mart here, I go ahead and empty out my life savings and buy a bunch of super potions, about 41 repels, and some antidotes and paralyze heals. I've been holding on the Amulet Coin for a decent bit since I got it, and that's how I was able to afford this many. I fight a bunch of trainers on Route 10 leading to Geosenge Town. Just because, even though I have water moves, Grant is still a tough gym leader. I don't want to underestimate him. I fight all the trainers in Grant's gym, and then I have to leave because I somehow ran out of potions, which I have no idea how that's even possible. And then I can go inside this hotel right here and get myself the TM for rest. Actually, when I said I was out of potions, that wasn't really true. I realized I needed rest in order to take them on so I can get rid of the Thunder Waves. Theoretically, I could have had the guy in Camphreer Town give me a Cherry Berry if I get a Pokemon that he wants, but that's sorta too inconsistent, and having the ability to heal will just be more important. Anyway, let's go take on the second gym leader, Grant. Grant leads off with his Amora. I go ahead and use a Water Pulse, which I learned via level up. It does half, and then it paralyzes me. I sorta figured that. Then on the Tyrant, I use another Water Pulse. It only does a third because the Dragon typing makes it neutral, and then I'm constantly getting flinched, but fortunately, I'm able to bypass the flinches and paralysis, and I am able to use Rest. And then, as soon as I wake up, I use another Water Pulse, and then the Tyrant gets to red health. I saw he was going to use a Super Potion. I probably should have used Smokescreen, but I instead went for another Water Pulse, and that ends up being the death of me. On the next attempt, the Amora somehow completely destroys me. On the third attempt, I used some rare candies to get to level 28, allowing me to learn Double Team. I think I should have had this move going into the Grant fight, so now I can set up some Double Teams on the Amora. Even if I get paralyzed, it can't really do much to me unless it hits me with a Refrigerate boosted takedown, so that makes it pretty bad and still inconsistent. It takes me until 7 resets into the run to actually defeat Grant and get my second gym badge. Hopefully things get easier from here. Although, the main thing with X and Y runs people need to realize is that a lot of random trainers at this point have very high leveled Pokemon, and they're actually pretty decent. There's this one black belt inside of the Reflection Cave. She has a Throw and a Sock, and Throw and Sock have very good defenses, and even though I'm level 30, which is 5 levels higher than them, I still end up getting knocked out by her. She is honestly just a straight up scary trainer. Even if I have a flying type, I still end up getting resets to this person. I should probably avoid facing them. I end up getting 2 more resets to her before I'm like, wait a minute, she's an optional, I don't need to fight her. So I go ahead and just skip her. I should probably just skip her most runs because she gives good XP yields, but she is very dang difficult. Fortunately, I don't have any other episodes inside of the Reflection Cave, and then the rival battle inside the Tower of Mastery goes according to plan. Although it's really annoying when the Meowstic uses Light Screen because I have all special moves. And it's not just Light Screen that makes the Meowstic difficult to deal with. The Meowstic have the ability Keen Eye, which I didn't think was a big deal, because that just lets them ignore accuracy drops like from Sand Attack. But here's another thing, this was starting in Generation 6, Keen Eye also ignores Double Team. So all this time when I was using Double Team on the Meowstic was absolutely pointless. I didn't figure this out till much later in the run. It was actually the final rival battle in this game where I had a ridiculous number of resets because Double Team just wasn't working for some reason. This is one of those random changes that I never even knew existed until it was too late. But I really don't want to do another run of this because even without that, this run is still difficult. Anyway, let's go fight Karina. Karina leads off with Mienfoo. A lot of the other trainers in this gym were pretty dang difficult because fighting types have good special defense, but hopefully Karina's easy. I start off by using some double teams, but I do get hit by a fake out, and as I set up my double teams, the Mienfoo is trying desperately to use Power Up Punch on me, but it's getting less and less chances to do so as my evasion gets higher, and then the Mienfoo goes down. I chose not to learn Aqua Tail, and then I can two-shot the Machoke with Acid. Then on the Hawlucha, I can go ahead and continue spamming Acid. I don't get any defense drops sadly, so it's going to be a 3-hit. But I must have gotten a good range or something because the final use of Acid was actually able to knock out her Hawlucha from above half HP. So that was pretty good. I get myself the free Lucario as well as the free Lapras, and then I can hop on a Skidoo. And there are leftovers on this route, but I actually choose not to get them. I can just get a black sludge later in the game that's more on the way, so I would rather just use that, although it doesn't really matter. Although, I do realize I end up forgetting something. I have to go all the way back through Route 12, which I just passed through, and enter this house to get the TM for Attract. But while trying to do that, I end up getting a blackout on this one trainer with Miltank. So, yeah, that was very sloppy. But anyway, it doesn't matter. With Attract in hand, let's go ahead and take on the 4th gym, Ramos. Ramos leads off with his Jumpluff. I do have a type advantage because Grass is weak to Poison, and at level 38, which I was before fighting him, I now have Sludge Bomb. And Sludge Bomb boosted with Stab and Adaptability is a rough power of 180. So yeah, this move is going to be extremely powerful. And as I'm fighting the Team Flare Grunts in the power plant, I do have the Black Sludge equipped, which is just leftovers but only for poison types. But if non-poison types hold it, they get poisoned. You could do some funny little tricks by using Trick, literally ironic. You could use Trick to give your opponent the Black Sludge, but I'm just going to be using this as my own leftovers. But like I said, you could have either gotten this or the literal leftovers. It really didn't matter. I just wanted to be fun. And now that the power plant's cleared out, I can head back to Lumio City and go take on the 5th gym leader, Clement. He is going to be tricky, but I do want that Thunderbolt TM. Clement leads off with his Emolga. He's probably going to Volt Switch right away, and it actually doesn't. It used Aerial Ace, and I'm able to one-shot it with Sludge Bomb. Then on the Magneton, I use Water Pulse to do half, and fortunately it hits itself in confusion, and then he for some reason switches out to Heliolisk. He probably thought I was going to use Water Pulse again, because I'm pretty sure Heliolisk has dry skin, so that's probably what it was trying to do. But however, that doesn't end up working for him, because as soon as he quits using his infinite uses of potions, I can go ahead and knock out the Heliolisk, and then use one final Water Pulse on the Magneton. Although it did set up an electric terrain, which is normally bad because it would double Thunderbolt's damage, but fortunately Magneton isn't really that good. It would be bad if the Heliolisk used Thunderbolt though, but fortunately I first tried Clement, and then I get my own TM for Thunderbolt. That is a really good reward. The rival battle just outside Lumio City on Route 14 is one of the more difficult battles here, especially since the starter is fully evolved into Delphox. And I do have the Quick Claw equipped for this fight, because I do need to try and win some speed deficits on this team. Fortunately I get rid of the Meowstic, although Light Screen is still up. And then I get hit with Mystical Fire from the Delphox, and it keeps lowering my special attack, and then I realize this, and I'm like, oh, that's not good. Fortunately, I am able to knock it out, and then Sludge Bomb unfortunately doesn't do enough due to all the special attack drops, and I end up getting a reset here. I know what the proper solution for this fight is. I need to set up some double teams on the Meowstic, not really for the Meowstic, but for the Delphox, and I really need to try and not get hit with Mystical Fire, because that is not good. I do end up on the Absol at red health though, but fortunately I get a Quick Claw boost. I don't know if it mattered there, and then I can outspeed it and one-shot it. And now, we are going to head through the swamp and enter Laver City. This Laver City Pokemart is where I can buy vitamins, and I'm going to buy a lot of them. And so today's Vitamin of the Day is actually a lot of vitamins, in fact. They are as follows: 1 Carbos and 5 Calcium. You do end up seeing me buy 2 Carbos, but that was just because I couldn't remember if I could use the second one, and I can't. The reason I can't is because in X and Y you get a lot of speed EVs, and I've tested this usually by this point on near minimum battles with some spinners, usually at around 85 speed EVs, so there's really no room for Carbos. And the Calciums are pretty self-explanatory. We're mainly using special moves, so that's the reason we need Calcium. But anyway, this gym we do have a type advantage at because Poison's good against Fairy. So why don't we go take on Valerie and see how this fight goes. Valerie leads off with her Mawile, and obviously I'm not going to be using Sludge Bomb on this thing. I just set up some double teams as she just unsuccessfully just uses Crunch for really pathetic damage. And then once I set up enough double teams, I can go ahead and knock out the Mawile with Thunderbolt. Then on the Mr. Mime, I go ahead and use Sludge Bomb for the one shot. Then on the Sylveon, Sludge Bomb only ends up doing half, but I actually poison it. And then on the next turn, I get a Quick Claw proc, and I end up two-shotting the Sylveon. So yeah, I was able to get my 6th badge. So far, the hardest gym was actually just the 2nd badge, which is kind of surprising. I actually thought Clement would be harder, but he really just threw the fight, honestly. The Pokeball factory goes just fine, and then before I leave town, I go back into the mart and I purchase 8 zinc, so I have more vitamins for today, and I'm able to use all 8 zincs, because throughout most Pokemon games, not many Pokemon actually give special defense EVs, so I'm able to use a lot of zincs for that reason. And then I head through Route 15, and then I enter Dendamil Town for the fly point, and then I can head south through Route 16 to get this rare candy, and then I can fly back to Dendamil Town. Although I forget and just walk back anyway. So now at this point I have to go through the Frost Cavern and do some more Team Flare stuff. There are some difficult trainers in here, like a bunch of black belts. And good news and bad news, none of those random trainers cause problems, but one of the Team Flare admins do. Her Houndoom uses Foul Play for quite a lot of damage, and she actually survived a Sludge Bomb, and then I end up fainting. However though, I did not save before this fight, so I'm going to have to black out, go all the way through the cave again, just to try it again, and fortunately I do win on the 2nd try, although that was very, very dumb. With all those worries out of the way, I can go through this Mamoswine route, and then enter Anastar City. Before I can take on the 7th gym, I have to take on the rival again. And just like a lot of the other rival fights, these rival fights are straight up brutal with this thing. It doesn't help that with the Meowstic having Keen Eye, my double teams don't really mean anything. Plus, he has Light Screen, and if I don't get set up for the Delphox, then it's able to use Mystical Fire or straight up kill me with Psychic. So yeah, this is really bad. Delphox is pretty dang scary. Fortunately, on the second attempt, I get to the Delphox because I did lose the first attempt, and I'm able to two-shot it with Sludge Bomb, and then the Absol and the Jolteon go down as well. So with yet another difficult rival battle talking about, let's go ahead and take on the 7th gym leader, Olympia. She leads off with Sigilyph. I go ahead and use one double team as she sets up Light Screen. So now I'm going to have to keep setting up double teams to hopefully stall out the screen. I do get hit with Psychic, but fortunately the Light Screen wears off, and because the Sigilyph outspeeds, it set up another Light Screen. So yeah, this is pretty problematic. I'm just going to have to keep spamming Sludge Bomb, and hopefully the Light Screen will just fade and she won't use another one. And it does end up happening, but I'm at very low HP for the Slowking. I hit it with Thunderbolt, my double teams do not come through for me, and I get a loss. Wow, this Pokemon stinks. I end up getting a lot of resets on this person. 23 resets total into the playthrough so far. I end up having a change of strat. What I end up doing is I now have Rest on the moveset, so when I have all the double teams up, I can just use Rest if my health ever gets too low. And once I do that, I am able to defeat her. So now we have to go through a bunch of massive Team Flare sections. And I would like to skip over a lot of this stuff, but I am going to have to talk about the first Lysander fight, because his Gyarados does a lot of damage to me, and then the Murkrow is actually able to knock me out, which causes me to black out because I didn't think to save before this guy. Seriously, this thing is so fragile. Other than that though, the first section of the Team Flare segment of this run, which is the Lysander Cafe, that goes on without any further issues, as well as the second part in Geosench Town, and now I'm all the way at the final battle. I knock out his Mienshao in one hit, then on the Pyroar, I decide to start setting up some double teams. I also now have Dragon Pulse on the moveset, which I got at level 53, and I taught it over Rest. It may have been a good idea to have Rest still, but right now, I have a few double teams set up, and now I have to defeat the Mega Gyarados. And even though the first attack from Gyarados missed, Sludge Bomb only does half, then the second hit actually gets through my double teams, so now I have to go through the Xerneas cutscene again. Yippee. I get multiple more resets to this guy, and then I end up having to change my strategies yet again. I now have Rest taught in my moveset again, as well as the Black Sludge, so now I can at least heal up if my health gets too low. And once I start doing that, I am able to win. What I'm really noticing with this Pokemon is it really has to rely on Double Team and Rest, otherwise this thing just falls apart. Anyway, with the Team Flare sections finally over, I head on through Route 19 after defeating Professor Sycamore. I have to go all the way through this part of the route to get another TM for Sludge Bomb. Well, not another TM, but the TM for Sludge Bomb. I'm going to need this for move flexibility later in the run. And then once I get this, I have to take on the 3 rivals back to back on this bridge. Usually one of them causes a problem. And one piece of good news for Dragalge is that none of them give me a problem. So I guess now we can go take on the final gym leader, Wulfric. Before I play the intro, I do end up getting a blackout on one of the gym trainers. Anyway, let's now go fight Wulfric. You thought I was going to fight Wulfric? I black out on another trainer. Seriously, I hate this Pokemon. Okay, let's fight Wulfric before I lose my mind. Wulfric leads off with his Abomasnow. Fortunately, it is weak to Sludge Bomb, but I go ahead and use a couple of double teams first, although the hail is still hitting me, but that's sorta expected. I knock out the thing with Sludge Bomb, then on the Cryogonal, I end up getting knocked out. The problem is, Cryogonal has extremely good special defense, so I honestly was just using double teams to try and avoid getting hit from it. It doesn't take too many more tries to defeat Wulfric. I'm only at 30 resets into the run. And then as soon as I'm finished with Wolfric, I go ahead and use all of my rare candies to get to level 72. And now at this level, I feel pretty confident in going through Victory Road. I do get one reset on the Weavile trainer in Victory Road, but it's sort of expected at this point. But remember earlier when I mentioned the whole Keen Eye and double team situation? The rival battle in Victory Road was when I found this out. You will never guess how many resets I got. I entered this fight at 31 resets into the run, and my winning attempt was at 37 resets. I actually assumed I was just extremely unlucky, and when I told Axew about all my luck, he ended up telling me that starting Gen 6, Keen Ice ignores double team from the opponent. That would have been really good to know, otherwise I wouldn't have even wasted time with setup, but I guess better knowledge to know for next time, because that Meowstic will actually be a counter to anything using double team, because it's the first Pokemon. So yeah, I guess this is the first time someone actually tries to nerf a double team user. Well, there's that, and then the Champion's Pidgeot from Fire Red because it has Aerial Ace, but it doesn't matter. I head through the rest of Victory Road without any issues, and then I get to the Pokemon League. I heal at the center, buy some full restores, and now we need to go take on the final 5 trainers. Let's do this shit. The first Elite Four member I take on is the water user Cybold. He leads off with Clawitzer, which I will be playing later in the week, and then I go ahead and use a double team, and then Dragon Pulse hits me for a ton of damage. And then after 2 double teams, I use Sludge Bomb for the one shot. Fortunately, I outsped. Then on the Gyarados, I use Sludge Bomb. Fortunately, I avoided Earthquake. And then I just keep on using Sludge Bomb. Hopefully I can keep avoiding hits. He just keeps using full restores, so I have no idea if he's going to even hit me or not. But once he stops using full restores, he does end up defeating me. And I have to black out because I could not remember if I had saved before him. And looking back through the footage, I actually did not. I meant to save, but I ended up approaching him way too quickly. So I have to black out and then go back into the league. Okay, this whole run's just been a huge mess. On the second attempt at Cybold though, I am able to knock him out. Especially since I now have Thunderbolt on my moveset, unlike the first attempt. I really should have taught Thunderbolt for that first attempt. I do not know what I was thinking. Next up is the Dragon-type Elite Four member, Drosna. She leads off with Dragalge versus my own Dragalge. I go ahead and use one double team, and then I switch to Dragon Pulse for the one shot. Dragon Pulse boosted by adaptability is going to make great work of her whole team. I one shot the Altaria, the Noivern, and the Druddigan. Alright, very well done. Next up is the Fire type Elite Four member, Malva. Malva leads off with Pyroar. I go ahead and use Sludge Bomb for the one shot, as well as the Torkoal because it has defense but not special defense. Then on the Talonflame, I actually get a Quick Claw clutch allowing me to one shot it and outspeed. And then I use Sludge Bomb on the Chandelure, it resists it because it's Ghost, and then I switch over to Dragon Pulse, which ends up delivering the two shot. And also that Quick Claw on the Talonflame, her Talonflame is the fastest Pokemon in the game with 183 speed. So it was a very good thing I got the Quick Claw there. Last up is the Steel type Elite Four member, Wikstrom. Wikstrom was the #1 reason I wanted Hidden Power Fire. I go ahead and set up some double teams on the Klefki, and just as I suspected, it does end up hitting me with Torment. So now I have to alternate between double team and another move. Fortunately, I can just go back and forth between Hidden Power and Thunderbolt, but it does end up making the fight go slower. On his Probopass though, Dragon Pulse and Hidden Power Fire are going to take quite a few attempts to knock him out, but fortunately Thunderbolt's actually able to deal the job. Then on the Scizor, I can use Hidden Power Fire for the one-shot. I get to level 77. Then on the Aegislash, I have to switch to Dragon Pulse. He protected himself, switch to Hidden Power Fire, and yeah, you can see just how this fight goes. I gotta alternate between all sorts of moves because of that Torment, but I am able to knock him out eventually. And now, we need to go take on the champion Diantha. Let's do this. She leads off with her own Hawlucha. I need to be careful about setup on this thing because it does have Swords Dance. I use Attract on it, which is the main reason I wanted the TM in the first place. Her whole team is female, and I made Dragalge a male, so that way I can use Attract strats on her whole team. And then with Attract and Double Team, I can actually safely get to +6 and now go for the sweep. I one-shot the Hawlucha with Sludge Bomb, and then I have to two-shot the Aurorus with Dragon Pulse because that thing's defenses are very, very good. Then on the Tyrantrum, I can one-shot it with Dragon Pulse because it's weak to it, as well as the Goodra, although it's going to be a two-shot because its special defense is insanely high. Then on the Gourgeist, I can switch over to Sludge Bomb, which deals neutral damage, but still enough to one-shot. Then on the Gardevoir, it's obviously a Fairy type, so now I can just use Sludge Bomb, one-shot it, and Dragalge has clocked in, with a time of 2 hours, 48 minutes, and 48 seconds. With 37 resets, at level 78, leveled up right after the Gardevoir, with a game time after the credits of 7 hours and 39 minutes. Yeah, having this many resets in an X and Y run is definitely something, because on my leaderboard, the main things I've ran were the 2 box art legendaries, plus some very old runs that I did a long time ago, such as Charizard and Hoopa. Those really need re-ranks at some point, but still, this Pokemon was just absolutely awful. The rival was surprisingly quite bad because he has 2 Psychic types on his team, the Meowstic and the Delphox, and it was just very, very bad and brutally difficult. But I hope it gets better for Clawitzer because we're going to be playing with that run on Friday. I'm actually looking forward to it. I hope it's actually good, but it does have its own problems. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more. And be sure to follow me on my socials or support me through YouTube memberships. YouTube members get access to these runs a week or 2 early, and all the patch files to all the backports we do on stream. I will see you all in the next video.